Welcome to Ideagen TV. We're especially honored today to have with us guest host Steven James Tingus on Ideagen Hollywood. Steven, welcome.
Thank you, George. How are you?
Well, Steven, we're all doing well, and we're especially thrilled and excited to have you on Ideagen TV today, guest hosting an interview with a very special guest that I'll ask you to introduce in a few moments. But before then, wanted to talk about how you're doing and how things are in Los Angeles.
Well, like across America, it's a little confining right now. But, as somebody with in the high-risk group, I'm being especially careful of people and wearing my mask and all that, but otherwise everything's great.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's so great to hear, Steven. And I know you've been a global leader for so many years. Throughout your career, you've led, you're leading, you're inspiring. And gosh, do people need inspiration like that you're providing to so many millions of people across the planet? That's what we're excited about here today with Ideagen TV, to have you, especially with your special guest today.
Thank you, George. Yes, I have a very special guest, one of my best friends in Hollywood, and she's an actress, and a lot of big stuff going on for her right now. And her name is Eileen Grubba. She's an actress and an advocate for disability, but we're working together to decrease the misperceptions about people with disabilities. And in this case, that we have talent in Hollywood and want to make a difference both in front and behind the camera.
Incredible, Steven. And it's a special moment in time. I think the world is moving so quickly, and so many, of course, different challenges that we're facing. But in the end, we're focused here at Ideagen on achieving the 17 global goals of the United Nations by first creating awareness and then developing global partnerships to achieve those goals by 2030. And I know you're going to have an incredible conversation today. Looking forward to the inspiration, the leadership, and the incredible insights you'll bring to us today with your special guest, Eileen Gruber.
Thank you, George. And we all appreciate your support at Ideagen, because now is the time for change.
That's right, Steven. That's a great way to bring in your guests. Thank you so much. We look forward to hearing from you and from Eileen Gruber today on Ideagen TV.
Okay, thank you. Now I'd like to introduce my dear friend, Eileen Gruber, that is an actress in Hollywood, both on TV and film. And she also is an advocate for the equal opportunity for all people with physical or other challenges, as I like to say. And with that, Eileen, how are you?
Hi. Hi. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. Eileen, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into acting?
Okay, that's a long story. When I was a child, I was in a wheelchair because I had a spinal cord injury, and my mom used to bring me art supplies all the time because that's what I could do. So
Right.
I started getting very, very creative at around the age of 5, and always thought I was going to go into a creative field as an artist in some way or another. And I won awards for my artwork, and I got a college scholarship for my artwork, and then life sort of took a turn. And I've always been someone who believes in being open to what's being presented to you or what keeps coming to you. And what kept coming to me was after college, I moved to Atlanta, and people kept approaching me, asking me to do some modeling and things like that. And after just a couple of experiences, I decided that I should know a lot more about the industry before I get involved in it, just so that I wouldn't be in any way ignorant and a victim, possibly. So I started training. I started learning both in private classes, and also I started taking classes at the Alliance Theater and doing musicals back then at my church and in this big community theater environment. And so I always loved singing. I always sang in the choir when I was young, and I started doing musical theater, and just my love of acting just grew and grew and grew. And while I was pursuing my acting career, a lot of challenges came, because when you have a spinal cord injury and then you get out of a wheelchair and you're walking on all those damaged parts and damaged nerves, you still have all the challenges that a spinal cord injury patient has, but you're now walking. So I ended up, throughout the course of my career, having a lot of surgeries, a lot of leg rebuilds, often being in classes while I'm in a wheelchair with a cast up to my hip, and lots and lots and lots of, when I add up the years of surgery recovery I've had throughout my almost 30-year career, it's been almost half of those years I've been recovering from one surgery or another. So so throughout all of that, I always found a way to keep moving forward. And so when I was down with surgeries, that's when I would write. I started writing a lot, especially about my experiences and stories that inspired me and characters I wanted to play. So I've become an actress, writer, producer, and I even worked in casting for about 20 years, which is how I paid my medical bills in the years that I wasn't making health insurance through the Screen Actors Guild.
Mhm. It sounds very similar, because as a person with muscular dystrophy, I followed the same path as you, but most of my surgeries were up until my second and a half decade. But again, it makes you stronger
Oh yeah.
as a person.
Yeah.
And even though you and I have our battle scars, it's scars of success,
Oh yeah.
which really makes you, unstoppable.
Well, that is something that, people often ask me, how did you keep going through all of that? Because I also ended up getting cancer, thyroid cancer, probably from all the x-rays in my childhood, and having
Right.
to battle a lot of things. And so people often ask, how did you keep going with your career? And I'm like, you know what? I never stopped going with my career. Like, even when I went through the cancer stuff, I had pitched a project, to a studio owner, a small studio owner, and he sent a writer out, and we wrote a screenplay while I was going through my cancer treatments, and delivered it before I got out of Texas, where I go for my medical stuff. And so even in the last couple of years, I've had three major surgeries, 2 complete ankle and foot rebuilds, even since 2016. So I spent the last 3 years recovering. I'm still sort of recovering. And during that time, I when I couldn't get across a room, I was back in a wheelchair, but I was still going to auditions. And then when I could get up on crutches, I was showing up at auditions and going up 2 flights of stairs sometimes on crutches, just because
Right.
I'm not going to miss an opportunity. And the industry didn't really always appreciate it. There were times when I trucked up those stairs, and then I'd get that look like, really? And I'm like, what? I still have to make health insurance. I still have to make a living. I still have my dreams, and it's still film and television. Hello, sit me down if you want to see it. So I never stopped. And I think that's something that I say a lot, but it's also something you are very familiar with. It's like when you've had a major disability or health crisis, it's not something that just goes away and then you're done. It's a lifetime thing that we have to keep up with, and we have to keep growing stronger, and we have to keep working harder than most people do, honestly.
Right.
And therefore, we have this spirit that a lot of people don't always understand, but they only need to step back and say, oh my God, that's how they're here. That spirit is the reason that people like you and I keep going and are still here. Because it is far easier to lay down and die than to keep moving. It's the hardest thing is to keep going. And that's what we've done. And it's why after this many years, I have a career, because I didn't stop. I never stopped.
Right. And, a lot of people don't understand where we're coming from. It's not really about being inspirational. It's about us being willing to open ourselves up
Mhm.
and educate people. Say, hey, I'm Steve, or hey, I'm Eileen.
Yeah.
This is who I am.
Yeah.
These are my talents, and this is what I can do, rather
Right.
than dwelling on the negative, where the negative isn't going to get you that role.
Well, it ties in, what you're saying ties into something that I've so strongly believed. And I know there's a lot of noise out there that makes everything confusing in this day and age.
Right.
But here's the reality. And I've gotten to the place in life where I don't really care what anybody else thinks about my mindset, because I've gotten here because I've had to survive everything I've had to survive. My perspective is mine. It's my own. And I'm allowed to see my life and my experience any way that I need to see it to keep going. Right? So my perspective is this. I've gone from being a perfectly healthy, normal child to being
Right.
paralyzed from the waist down, to nearly dying at that time, to being up and moving and horrifically bullied as a child, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And everywhere I went. And I've dealt with such cruelty throughout my life, and I've been in and out of those wheelchairs, in and out of those surgeries. I've gone through enough, and one thing has not changed. One thing has not changed, and that is that I am still the human being that I was, who had a big spirit as a little girl. I still have the same hopes, the same dreams, the same desires. I still want the same opportunities as everybody else, and I don't really care what anybody thinks about that. I have a right to go after my dreams. I have a right to live those dreams. I have a right to the same income opportunities, the same work opportunities, as long as I've done my work, which I have. I've worked my tail off, harder than any 10 or maybe 100 actors that you could put together in any one room at any one time. And the thing is, anyone who's followed my path through these years knows I've worked harder than everybody else. I've put those hours in on the stage. I've trained relentlessly all these years. And so I have a right to my dreams. I have a right to work. And so does every single person with a disability. We're not less. We're not different. We're not supposed to be put in a category that doesn't quite fit into the world. We're human beings.
Right.
That doesn't change when your health status changes. You're still a human being with the same love and dreams and everything, so if there is one thing that really changes, it's that you become stronger, you become more empathetic, you become more compassionate, and you become a lot more understanding of the world around you. So if anything, I believe we become more, not less, more. And we have more to offer the world. We have more stories to share that will help other people get perspective, and so I feel like, I say this a lot, but I mean it to the core of my soul. We who've survived so many things are literally society's game changers. And so
Right.
society wants to function better in this world and in this environment that everyone's so terrified by right now. You need to bring in your survivors, your people who know how to live and overcome and thrive in the worst environments. They're going to have a lot of answers. So I don't see people with disabilities as people that should be kept out. I feel like our paths should be cleared and we should be sent into the game.
Exactly. Because we're a part of the fabric, and we're no different than anybody
Nope,
else.
we're
And
not.
we have talents across professions.
Yes.
And the most important thing, especially right now, is that we care.
Yeah. A
We
lot.
care about ourselves, our peers,
Yeah.
and other communities that are really getting hit.
Yeah.
And until we all realize that we're all of value,
Yeah.
nothing will change except for us that want to make change.
Right. I think this whole world's going to be a better place when everyone starts to realize that inside this vessel called the human body, there's a mind, there's a spirit, and there are hopes and dreams. And every one of us has every single human being has a different perspective because they're seeing the world from what they've been through to get where they are. And so when this world starts to realize that we're all equal, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. It really doesn't matter if you're the head of a company or you're the janitor. It doesn't matter if you're the Queen of England or the person mowing the lawn. We're all equal. We're all human beings and we all add to each other's lives. And, it's kind of fascinating to me over all these years to watch how cruel people would be without knowing the human being they're dealing with. They just see something that they don't like or they're uncomfortable with, and then suddenly they're cruel. And, I understand the mentality that is fear-based that makes them make that choice, but I wish that we could get our stories out there and share our perspectives on a much broader level so that people start to think differently. When you see someone with battle scars and you see someone with missing parts or different parts or any difference, whatever, we're all different or we wouldn't be human beings. Every single human being is different, and who decided we all need to fit in these little boxes and categories? I have no idea who even thought of that. But we're all different and we have to be, and that's what makes life interesting. And it's just so much more valuable and a much richer life if we can look at every human being and see the value and what they're bringing to the table. And that doesn't mean there aren't going to be people we don't like, that don't jive with our life experience, our beliefs, our wants, our desires, and that's okay. But we should be allowed to play in any arena we want to. And society is going to be so much stronger when everybody starts to look at everybody going, wow, we're equal, no matter where we're at in the economics or any other thing, we're equal. And what can I add to this person's life, and what can this person teach me? Because we can all help each other, all of us.
Exactly. And that's the most important thing, is to open yourself up to others cautiously, but open yourself up to others so you can teach each other what the meaning of life is all about.
Right.
With that, I wanted to ask you, is there anybody in your life or early life that gave you a lot of support that helped you get to this point in your career?
Yeah, there are a lot of people. It almost makes me teary to think about it, because the very first person that gave me the courage, the strength to face the adversity that I was about to face my whole life, and when it started, was my mom. And unfortunately, my mom didn't live a long life. She made it to the age that I am now, But before she left this world, she had 8 children, and she left her mark. And when I was a small child and just beginning to face the cruel world that I was going to face the rest of my life, she taught me so much. And I remember dealing with a horrible abuse at school, and even teachers that were cruel. And I remember being so upset one time when I was about 7 years old, and so upset that I literally said to my mom, and it wasn't because my physical challenges were so bad, it was because people were so cruel.
Right.
And because of the cruelty, I remember getting in the car from school one day and telling my mom that I wish she would have let me die. And I'll never forget that day, because my mom, tears rolled down her face. She took a deep breath, and she looked at me and she said, "Young lady, you need to count your blessings." And when I challenged her on that, I said, "What blessings? What blessings?" Because everything seemed broken in my world, and it really did. And I felt horrible, and I hated going to school every day, and I knew what I was going to deal with every day. And in that time, my mom explained to me, first she listed all my blessings in case I wasn't aware of every single one of them. She was like, and this and this and this. She told me all the wonderful things about me. And then she said to me, they are not showing you what is wrong with you. They are showing you what is wrong with them.
Right.
So thank them for showing you who they are. And those are not the people you want to play with. Move on, find your people. And so that lesson has stuck with me through life. And a lot of times when I felt challenged trying to get somebody who just didn't want me in their arena to let me in or to give me a fair shot, I just kept remembering what my mom said. They're not showing you what's wrong with you. They're showing you what's wrong with them. They're unevolved. They're incapable of the kind of equal, fair thinking that is necessary for this world to move to the next place. They're incapable of empathy, compassion, whatever. I can't change those people. I can just be the best person I can be and move on and find people who appreciate what I'm bringing to the table. And it's been one of the most painful and most empowering lessons of my life. So my mom was, throughout the years I had her, the most powerful influence in my life. To this day, I lean into her wisdom, and her words come to my head when I'm in my greatest times of struggle. There have been times when I was terrified about cancer and how I was going to beat it and how I was going to do it on my own and pay for it. And I literally would wake up from dreams of my mom literally holding me and petting my head and telling me everything was going to be okay, and dreams that were so vivid. So my mom was the greatest gift. My dad was a great supporter too, and even when he died not too many years after my mom, he used to come up and see my shows, my musicals. He loved driving to Atlanta to see my stuff. And then I think one of the greatest gifts that happened in my career that has helped me move my work to a level where no one can say I can't do what I want to do. Those people I have to thank, and that's the people at the Actors Studio. I have had the most incredible mentors there, starting with Alan Miller, who coached Meryl Streep, and Dustin Hoffman, and so many of the greats of the prior generations and now. And he's still one of my coaches. He's going on 92 years old. He's still one of my greatest mentors. Barbara Bain, my heart, I love this woman, and she has been there for me, not only teaching me as an actor through all these years, but also guiding me to this day, to even yesterday, on how to deal with the craziest life challenges, and even the one who is the first one to pick up a phone and say that my new Amsterdam episode needs to be in the running for an Emmy, and she's a multi-Emmy winner. Then there was Carmen Argenziano, who was someone that was such a force in my life for the past 14 years. Unfortunately, he passed away last year, and he was such a great teacher to me in this industry, and my best friend and my soulmate and my business buddy, and we helped each other with everything, and he taught me so much through the years. There's Lou Antonio, who's a fantastic actor, director, had been on Broadway in all the Paul Newman movies. He's one of the heads of the Actors Studio now. Martin Landau was such a great gift to my work and my life, and all of them took me in like I was one of their children, and they've all taught me so much, and I'm just grateful. And every time I thought I knew what I was doing as an actor, they would raise the bar. Every time they'd raise the bar. And I remember the day that Carmen said to me, as I was coaching him on something, he said, the student has surpassed the teacher. You go out into that world and you keep raising the bar. And so I do try to do that everywhere I go. You know, in the community of actors with disabilities, we try to do workshops. Paul Ford had an idea to do these free workshops for people with disabilities, and where we welcomed anyone for free. We didn't care what anybody's challenge was, anything. We would find accessible locations, and I tried to do the cliff notes of the industry and the cliff notes as fast as I could to get them up to speed, because we're finally getting to a place where the industry is opening up, and I want the people with disabilities who are coming up behind us, because we've been trailblazing for 30 years now, at least I have been 28 years, and there's a few people that have been in the game as long as me in this arena, and the doors are finally opening. We have beat our heads against those walls enough years, and it's time. And so we've been trying to get everybody ready, and as Carmen encouraged me, raise the bar, raise the bar, raise the bar. So that answer your question, my parents and all the people at the Actors Studio, especially my mentors and Carmen Argenziano.
Yeah, I thought as much, because, I know that my mom died following her bout with breast cancer. She only lived until 66 years, and she saw me, become living independently and working for president. But a lot of people don't know this. One night, she was like frustrated with me. I was a little bit of a troublemaker, as many people know. She gave me the back of the ring finger, and she said, "Shape up. I didn't teach you all this for nothing. One day I'll be gone, and you'll regret that I'm not around. But one thing I want to tell you is that you have to pursue your goals, because nobody will look out for you except yourself."
Yeah.
And my father, as you probably met, he died in 2015, but he led a good life for 83 years. They were my pillars. And the one thing I want to tell our viewers, as your parents were, because they're from the same generation, is that they treated us no different
No.
than anybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, not different at all.
Yeah.
To the point you would go, damn, why can't they treat me differently? But they did it because they wanted us to be strong.
Yeah.
Way after they left.
They were
us.
gone. Absolutely. Absolutely. My parents, like I said, 8 kids, and my parents have been gone. My mom's been dead 30 years now. So I've spent most of my adult life without her, and my entire career life without her. My dad was a few years into my career life, and then he passed away. They both died very, very young, very, very, very young.
Yeah.
And yet what they taught me, and what I felt growing up was that I had as much right as every other kid in the family to follow my dreams. As a matter of fact, it was very much encouraged. My dad did not allow me to be any weaker. There were just little things he wouldn't let me do because he's worried I would get hurt. But dumb things, like when I was like just learning how to walk again, I wanted to mow the lawn, and my dad's like, no. He's like, you could trip and hurt yourself on the lawnmower, and I'm like, I can do it. And you know, what kid wants to mow the lawn? I don't know. I just wanted to do what everybody else was doing. But other than the things where they were afraid I would get hurt, they let me do what everybody else did, and they expected me to always be my best. They always did raise the bar, and they taught me what you just said, strength.
Right.
And I don't know how I would have endured all the challenges, especially of my adult life, if I didn't have the foundation I had from my parents. And I don't always agree with a lot of the current advocacy stuff, because I think a lot of times when we expect people to give us something we hadn't earned, or we're fighting for, it's the way a lot of things are worded. It's like, I don't want anything I haven't earned. I want to earn my place, but I just want everyone to get out of my way and let me earn it at an equal level as everybody else. You know, I want the same opportunities as everybody else. I don't think that's too much to ask. I'm not asking for anything I haven't earned. And
I agree with you so well, because as a child of the Rehab Act and being one of the first handicapped students to integrate into public schools, I rather earn what I want, and you can't rely on government policy to do right by you.
Well, if you rely on it, you end up putting yourself at a huge disadvantage, because you might not get what you need. And so I'm strongly in support of everyone getting what they need for everything to be fair and equal. But I have never been a person who felt like what I need and my challenges are someone else's fault or burden. You know, I try to always make sure me and the people in my world handle my stuff, so it's not, I don't want to put it on everybody else. I do want everyone to have equal opportunity, and I want everyone to have equal access in every way possible. I believe that that's a societal thing where the entire society, all of humanity, everybody needs to do their part to remove barriers so that everyone has equal opportunity. And we need to get rid of that unconscious bias that came through all the years. I've never really quite understood it. I have a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that so many people think that people with disabilities are weak or less or whatever, because the people that I know well with disabilities are the strongest people I know on the whole planet. They are the strongest.
And there's a lot of good members of our community that get that we're not due something. We like to earn it, and when we earn it, it makes everybody stronger.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to ask you, as I'm a member of Ideagen, we're focused on the U.S. Global goals of 2030. And specifically, I'm very connected to global goal on equity and the global goal on inclusion. Can you tell me, as a human being first, what those goals mean to you?
Well, I'm glad that goals are being set and people are moving towards them. Goals help us achieve, so that's important. However, I can't help but take a deep breath and say, it's a shame that this didn't happen 30 years ago. Because, if you look back through all of history, there have been plenty of times when humanity has been challenged in enormous ways. And I would have thought that those things would have already made people more aware of the fact that things need to be equal and equitable for all. So I'm glad there's goals, but I just wish we didn't even have to put it out to 2030. Like, why can't it be like today, tomorrow, last year, 20 years ago? I've been working for years on a project that just every time I think about it, it breaks my heart, because I care a lot about people. And when I started this project, it was about the first little boy that was brought to Hitler by his own parents, that they wanted him killed because he was a monster, because he was missing multiple limbs. And Hitler just, of course, thought that was a great idea. Let's get rid of him. And then the next thing they did was go after all the little kids, babies with disabilities. And then the next thing they did was round up the next age range of people with disabilities, and then the rest. And by the time they were finished eliminating all people with disabilities, they knew how to mass murder. And then the Holocaust began. And so the premise of my movie, and even the log line, is, what if we cared about that first child? What if we had cared about that first child? And people stood up and said no. So I have a hard time imagining that we've gotten to 2020 and we're not there yet. And I'm glad we're looking at 2030, but why can't we just do it right now? Why can't we get this word out everywhere and just put an end to this BS right now? Because people are people and they are equal. And you know what? My mother had a piece of wisdom that might make some people cringe, but I've never seen it to not be true. She said, be very careful of the lessons you are given in this lifetime, because if you don't learn them the first time, they're coming back bigger.
Right.
And I would say to all people who have not had any experience yet with disability, learn your lesson from us.
Right.
If you don't, it's coming back bigger. You're going to end up with a disability, or your child will, and you will learn this lesson. Why not learn it now? And start treating people fairly.
It's like we're reliving 1968 that you and I remember.
Well, I don't remember 1968.
Sorry.
I think you're a little older.
Sorry.
But
but
I know history. I studied, but I definitely don't remember that year. But how do you feel about, Steven, the goals of 2030? Like, how do you feel about this? Because you've been an advocate in Washington and everywhere.
I think they're timely. You and I are working on these two goals here in the entertainment industry. I think, given the George Floyd, it's just terrible what happened. But I think it's time that we all work together.
Absolutely.
Instead of silos, because nothing works when you work in a silo.
Right. And also, nothing works when you sort of punish the ignorance that came before. It's like, the reality is, it's almost like we have to educate in a way that's positive and inclusive for everyone. Like, I don't think we ever win when we make everyone feel guilty and wrong. I think we win when we reach out our hand and say, come with me, I'll show you.
Right.
You know, welcome into my world. Come check out my world so that you understand where I'm coming from. I think that when we get to a place of helping each other understand, because I can't possibly understand your life, Stephen, unless you share it with me. And I can't possibly understand any other human's life unless they're sharing it with me. So the value of our industry is we're sharing each other's stories. And if we share them accurately and we have real, true representation, then people start to understand. And understanding is what we need, not blame and shame and abuse and all that. We need understanding. And that's every community. Every community needs to think about welcoming people into their world to see it and understand it. And yes, we need to stop the abusers and we need to put an end to that. But in terms of the majority of the population, I believe the majority of the population has good intentions and goodwill, and maybe they just don't have the knowledge yet, or the understanding or the comprehension of what we're talking about, and therefore we have to share our stories, and we have to share it with an open heart and an open mind and a welcome spirit. I think it's my opinion.
This is a good segue, Eileen. This time in your life is so exciting and so important. I want to ask you, what two characters that you've played, I'd say recently, that you were most proud of, and you are a contender to be nominated next Tuesday. Fingers crossed, because for the 2020 Primetime Emmy Award for Guest Actress in a Drama. But tell us first, what two characters are you really proud of because of their stories?
Because of their stories. Well, definitely this one from New Amsterdam, Elizabeth Archer. And it's interesting because, I've been acting for a very long time. And in the earlier years, people in this town in Los Angeles couldn't wrap their heads around how a blue-eyed, blonde, all-American girl could walk with a limp and have a AFO brace on her leg, which I had up until the last two surgeries. So I ended up having to play a lot of crackheads and alcoholics and just trailer trash, because it was kind of the only way that they could justify a limp. Go figure. So I went through stages in my career where at first that was the only jobs I could get in on, were crackheads and just alcoholics and stuff. And I love playing those roles. They're a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. I'll take them all day long. They're fun. But then I finally got to start going in for another kind of role. And those were the tough chicks, like Sons of Anarchy. And then when the industry started being more welcoming and inclusive of disability, they couldn't wrap their heads around a walking disability. They're still having trouble with that, even though there are 40 million Americans with walking disabilities. But so when there was a role for a disability, it was always the token, stereotypical, only one thing, and that used to be a person in a wheelchair. And so then they wanted, of course, someone who is still in a wheelchair. And so it's become this journey from playing this kind of role to this kind of role. And then, so I never really was allowed to play a role of a character that had a limp, because then they wanted a name, a star. And I never got to go in for the ones that were sitting down and not limping, like in a chair, because then there were other actors who were still chair users. And so New Amsterdam was really special for me because the character has a spinal cord injury. She's a cancer survivor. She's facing another daunting surgery, and she's angry about that because she finds out that the medical industry caused her paralysis. Well, that's my life story right there. That is my life. And with TV, the way it's condensed, you know, into 1 hour television minus commercials. So now we're looking at like 42 minutes of television, right? They somehow put my whole life. So every beat, every moment you're on screen is another turn. Like the opening breath of her finding out that it's not cancer. And that to me was so real and truthful because I've lived in terror waiting for those answers, you know, is it cancer, you know? And so first that, and then finding out why there's another doctor in the room, and then finding out she's got to face another surgery. Well, that's one of Eileen's greatest terrors, is finding out she has to have another surgery, because I know that every one of those is risking my life. I know what I got to go through to recover from it every time. So all these moments, were so important in this, and it was just a thrill to be able to show up with all the tools from the many years of training at the Actors Studio and be able to bring my life to that screen. And I knew I succeeded when people who weren't even in the industry contacted me to say thank you for portraying spinal cord injury accurately. Thank you for portraying what we go through accurately. And even my brother Joe called me up and he's like, oh my gosh, the hair went up on my arms. And when you know you're impacting people out there in the world who aren't even in our business, you know you did your job. And so that one to me has been the most important. My second most fun one so far, I'm sure I have a lot more coming, and we're just talking about film and television. I haven't had a lot of opportunity in the film world except indie films. I've never really had opportunity in the feature film studio feature world. I think I've had like 3 auditions ever in that world, and I booked one of them, and that was 5-year engagement. But they don't let me in the doors in those arenas, and they still don't. We're still fighting for that. But in TV world, I got to work on NBC's Game of Silence a few years ago. Interesting, these 2 very important things I'm talking about were both NBC projects. But years ago, I went up for a pilot, and I had to send my tape to the East Coast, and I got in and I booked this pilot, and then the character went on, and she was 6 episodes in the first season, and so much fun going back and forth in time, in age, going from age 35 to 58 and back and forth, and in the memories and everything, and a wild fun character. And that was a blast. And David Hudgens was the showrunner, and gosh, I wish that series would have kept going because that was so much fun. But I still have not yet played on film or television the kind of roles that I know I'm capable of. I've done it on the stage a lot.
Yeah.
For the Actors Studio, but I'd love to still play some life-changing roles.
You'll get there, you know. It is different, film versus TV versus theater, you know. But look at what you've done, and I'm not going to jinx it for Tuesday, but you know, you've paid your dues, and you have the gift of portraying people with authenticity. And it's amazing, and I'm very proud for you. And right now, we're going to show a clip from New Amsterdam. I have a question for you. We're going to talk about other communities
Hmm.
that are underrepresented
Right.
here in Hollywood.
Hmm.
It's hard. It's hard out here. So
Yeah.
don't even get me started. So, question: since the Oscars so white movement a couple of years ago, I believe 2017 or 18. We're people with disabilities are 20% of America, yet we're only represented 2% on TV and in film. which is-
2% of the characters, and then less than
Yeah.
5% of those 2% of characters are actually cast with people with real disabilities.
Yeah,
So we're looking at much smaller numbers than 2%, actually.
Yes, not two. Let me correct myself. 2% of the characters have a disability. Yet, of those cast as a disabled character, 95% are cast by able-bodied actors.
Yep.
And that's what we face. What are your hopes or ideas for systemic change in our industry?
Well, my hope is that every person searches their heart and their soul. Everybody in this industry who's still in the game searches their heart, and if they know they discriminated unfairly against someone like me or you, where they know they took a role you earned away and gave it to someone else because they were afraid of your difference, if all of those people would, they don't need to apologize. I don't need their apology. Make up for lost time. Make up for it now. We've lost. For me personally, I've lost 28 years of my youth in this industry, and lost so many roles that later it was confirmed that was the reason, even though I hands down won the role. And those people, I'm not going to shame them publicly. I don't have any interest in that. They don't need to make a public apology, but what they do need to do is that they need to make up for lost time. And I have confronted some people when their cruelty was above and beyond. I usually do confront in that moment, but there have been a few that got away with some awful, awful stuff, and they know who they are. One of them, I walked up to it at an event not too long ago and reintroduced myself and reminded him that that was one of the worst experiences of my entire career, and that they were lucky it was me, and that I'm strong because a lot of people might have done some sort of harm to themselves after what they'd done to me on this one particular project. And so I said to him, I think you should find a way for us to work together in a more positive environment soon. That's what I believe. And so I think that my dream is that if you know that you've wrongly taken a job away from anyone in this industry and it was wrong, and they earned the job and they should have had a fair shot, can you please find them and make up for it? You don't have to feel shame, and you don't have to hide and be afraid they're going to call you out. Just fix it. Fix it. Make up for lost time. Give us the roles we should have had that would have made our lives so much easier if we'd had them earlier. Well, make up for it now. That's what I think that people can do, is just fix it. And if you're a person in charge in this industry, make sure that it's fair. I'm not asking you to hire anybody who's not ready or not trained or isn't going to do a great job, but seek out those people who've been kept out for many, many years. Find them and let them in. Give them a fair shot. And then be aware of the fact that because they've been so discriminated against, they might be a little nervous in an audition. They're not going to audition like someone who's auditioned 3 times a day for the last 20 years. They're going to audition like someone who's auditioned once a year for the last 20 years, which is the reality, unfortunately, for a lot of people with disabilities. So be fair, give them a warm, welcoming room to come into, and give them a shot. Let them do what they do. It will light up your screen if you give them a safe space to play and just let them in, you know?
Right. And I think one of the misperceptions, at least for our generation, you and I, is that people think that we're retaliatory, but we're not. Like what I'm doing in Hollywood is I'm being very professional and actually giving too much of myself to educate people like Viola Davis and her husband, Julius Tennant, or the Norman Lear Center, because I want to harness their leadership to actually make change.
Yes.
Because people listen to them.
To them, yes.
And until we get to that point of saying, I value you. Do you recognize my community? And what can we offer you to make your stories and business brighter?
We're adding so much to the equation.
Yes. And so I think it's a big part of this is the mentality that you go into things. And when things don't go your way, try to work out the issue.
Yeah.
And if you do it in a very non-threatening way, people will say, wow, you really understand what we need, and we'll work with you.
Right.
And that's how doors open in any profession.
Right. We have to hold ourselves accountable for what we're bringing to the table. We need to add value. I know for a fact that when I'm on any production, I add as much value as I possibly can in terms of every aspect of it. Easy to work with, always bring my A game, always ready, always bringing many, many levels of stuff to the screen. I help all the way through in every way that I can in terms of PR for the production, publicity, authenticity on set, everything that I can offer, I bring to the table. And I always make sure I'm easy to work with. And we have to all think about the value we are adding to a production, and those of us who've worked really hard to make sure we have value to bring just want equal opportunity. I remember when Viola Davis won her first Oscar, and I was in tears because of her speech that said, this was never about lack of talent. This was about lack of opportunity. And through the years, there are many times when I thought, oh my God, how much harder can I work to make sure I'm really good at what I do? And they won't even let me in a room. Or I'll come in and they'll just turn their face and look at my legs and be like, are you limping? And I'm like, way to just point out your whatever they perceive to be wrong, right away. And then they shut down. And I'm like, you know what? If we just had equal opportunity for all of us, just like Viola Davis said, which I love her for that speech. It's like, we have the skills, we have the talent. Those of us who've been in the game a long time are ready. Just give us the opportunity, let us bring value to your production. As I know you, Steven, you fight hard to bring value to our community, to our industry. And I only know the stories of your prior years, but it sounds like you brought a lot of value everywhere you went in terms of understanding and opening up dialogue and conversation and making it easy for people to talk about. And I think it's really critically important for us to be easy to talk with, to share what we know, to elevate every project that we could possibly be involved in.
I agree. Because my experience is, I've done so much at the state and national level. I always had interest in Hollywood since my high school musical days, where I was the first drama student with a disability. But for me, more than money, although money is important, it's about being valued and included in the creative process to lift everybody up.
Yeah.
Not me, but include me so I could go to bed at night and knowing I still can make a difference.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And when we include people and we treat people like equals, we are adding value to their lives. And when we reach out to support someone who's going through a challenge that we've already been through, we are elevating, we're raising the bar, we're helping people through their challenges because we've been there. And
we love it.
Yeah.
We love doing that because it makes us feel good and fulfilled that we're teaching.
Yeah.
So my last question is, what do you hope to do next? And what types of stories that you would like to be a part of?
Okay, so what I hope to do next, like as soon as the quarantine ends, is I hope to have a series regular on a show. And I've gotten closer and closer to that. I have 2 networks that I've had meetings with that said they're looking for something like that for me. So, hopefully that happens. Coronavirus sort of shut everything down at a really important time. So I'm praying that still works out. I feel like I have a lot of value I can add to a TV series in so many ways. And so that's what I hope next, because I'd love to get to a point where I never have to worry about how I'm going to make my health insurance again. I would love to get to a place in my career after almost 30 years of hard work that I can stop worrying every year about how I'm going to make my health insurance, which means we all know what that means. It means we're not making any money. So that's the first and most immediate hope and dream. The next is I really want to be in a big studio feature. They have all these great characters and all these big superhero movies and everything, and it's like they always have who they perceive to be these strong women, and I'm like, yeah, hey, how about bring in a really strong woman? How about bring in a woman that in her own lifetime has proven that she can survive through almost anything, and then let me bring that strength to the stage. Don't make me play something weak and broken, although I'll still take that job because it pays health insurance and I'll knock it out of the park. But I would love somebody to bring me a role in a big studio feature where I can show people what a truly empowered, strong woman looks like. What this courage and strength and resiliency looks like in a role that is a woman who's truly powerful. Like, I'd love to see that character. I can't wait to play it. I hope I don't have to write it myself to play it. But I will if I have to. But I really would love to have a role like that. That's my dream. And I'd love to see more and more storylines that if the storyline is going to be about disability, then let it be authentically cast. and with a strong actor, somebody who's trained and ready and can bring everything to the screen and make people feel and understand. And then I'd love to see a lot more casting where we don't even discuss it. It's not even a part of the conversation. There's a character, she's limping. There's a guy in the bank who rolls in his chair and nobody, there's somebody signing, and there's someone deaf or blind, and let them just be there. We don't have to explain it all, because we don't in society. I don't walk into Ralph's or whatever store and be like, oh, look, there's someone with a disability. Can you please explain to me your whole life experience and why you're in this position? No, we don't do that. They're just part of life. And so I'd love to see that on the big screen and in the big movies in every capacity. Like, I don't understand why it's not represented in 20% of all roles in every project everywhere and authentically cast, because I think that there's so much depth and value, and also it'll bring a lot of audiences' attention where they'll be like, ooh, intrigued. And also it'll bring normalcy to all of our differences, which is something society has needed for a really long time. So, but I have a lot of dreams.
I absolutely agree with you. If any of people like Shonda Rhimes or any other producer or showrunner sees this, it's all about the business sense of inclusion and opportunity, because we are a major minority of the country, but we're able and we're talented, and most of us are seasoned, and we understand that this isn't about fame, fortune, glamour. This is about producing a product that sells and tells a story that people can see themselves in.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. And
That's
I think the depth that we bring, like, I know how people follow my story out there in the world. It's getting to the point where I'm being requested to tell my story practically multiple times a week, all the time now. And I know how it's affecting people, especially in this time when people are feeling so challenged and so broken and so distraught. And I think that them hearing the lives of people like us and our experiences helps people gain some perspective about challenges. And I feel like we bring so much depth to the screen that it will draw audiences back in, because we all know that over the last certain number of years, the industry is losing their audiences because people don't want to watch the shows, the award shows. There's a lot of stuff out there about how people are sick of Hollywood, and I think it's the shallowness of it that has bothered people. And so now we're bringing in the depth, and we're looking at real people, real challenges, and not trying to perpetuate this illusion of perfection that never existed. Hollywood perpetuated that for a lot of years. It was a disservice to all of humanity to put it out there as if there are these perfect people that you'll never be able to be. I think the more real we get and the more depth we bring in this industry, the more we pull people back in to our stories, and we elevate humanity when we do that.
Right. Eileen, I want to thank you on behalf of the team at Ideagen for being our guest today. You really gave me what I was hoping to get, was a authentic and honest conversation about where we are in Hollywood. And I just am proud to be your friend, and I wish you all the best on Tuesday. And with that, I hope you'll come back again and give us an update on your work.
Anytime. I love
Alright.
you. I love the work you're doing, and I'm so happy to be here, and I'm grateful that you asked me, and I love being asked where we're at with this business, because I've been in the trenches so long, and I really appreciate you for welcoming me onto your show.
I appreciate it.
Thank
Love you, Eileen.
Love you too.
Okay.
Thank you.